Great, the transmission came in yesterday from California, a 1974 Corvette transmission. The fellow is very particular and wants it done as best as possible. Here are the parts. He had it already disassembled. This is the M21, or M20 rather. And one thing we noticed right away was the cluster pin practically fell out. You could put it in by hand and pull it back out, which means that the case requires to be bushed. It should be a thousandths press fit, and so that's something that'll need to be addressed. You can see here the old bearing is a 12-ball bearing, which will replicate. Synchro rings, which we automatically replace. Original side cover, everything is original, all the numbers match. Tail housing, side cover, main case. One thing we always look at is these reverse gears, that they're nice and sharp. Usually they're chipped up. This one is in unusually good shape. Synchro hubs seem to be in good shape. They're not chattered. Usually they show some wear where the
can you hold that for just a moment so I can get a close-up?
Where the synchro collar rocks on it, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But this always looks in good shape. One thing you have to keep in mind when things are always greasy, it kind of has a magnified effect. This is an M21 actually, I'm sorry. But usually they have some wear on the thrust end of the cluster. This one tends to be in pretty good shape. Shift shafts are correct. And we'll go over these parts over here. Forks show very little, minimal wear. Again, we'll be able to determine that a little better once it's cleaned up. Here's some of the parts that are clean. The tail housing. I don't see any damaged threads. Oh, actually there's one. I'll need a helicoil right here. Usually these later 32 spline cases require welding. Usually these are broken off. This one's in very nice shape. Mid plate shows a little bit where the pin might have turned slightly, but usually that's in pretty good shape. Bearing retainer. Always want to feel across here that throw-out bearing rocks on here. This one looks in good shape. Same thing here where the gland nut rides against, it's not scored up. That's a reusable part. Our speed gears, we're always looking at the engagement teeth right here. These are in excellent shape, almost like new. You can tell there was a lot of crud built up in here that needs to be cleaned out. Here's the third gear. Again, the engagement teeth show very minimal wear, excellent condition. It's always nice to see these after they're washed up, because again, when they're wet they have a magnifying effect. And it's like the old adage, you never buy a car that's when it's wet in the rain, because you can't really tell what you're getting. That's first gear. That's in excellent shape. This is second gear, also in very good shape. You can see these points are nice and sharp. Usually they're banged up, and typically when they're banged up, the sliders are also, but you can see these are in very nice shape, reusable. They're nice and sharp yet. Once they get cleaned up, you can see there's a lot of grit built up in between the splines. That'll all be cleaned out. This is the 3/4 slider. Same thing. Nice condition. Reverse gear. Again, it's got minimal chips on it. We usually dress these to take the chips out. It strengthens it and keeps it from breaking again. Or minimizes the probability anyway. This is the shaft where this reverse idler rides on. Again, very little wear. This transmission is probably one of the better transmissions I've seen. This is the first gear sleeve. Shows very little wear. much covers it.
What happens next?
Well, we'll continue cleaning these parts. The case will be sent out to be bushed, and then the final assembly. Or actually the pre-assembly. We assemble the main shaft, we assemble the cluster in the main case, and do the work on the tail housing, and then we do the final assembly. Replacing all the wear parts, bearings, synchro rings, thrust washers, needle bearings, seals, bushings. This one will be, it's all numbers correct. He's very particular. He'll want all the original bolts cleaned, and we'll replate those with a black phosphate. There's a gland nut that if somebody doesn't have the correct tool, they use a chisel to put this on and off. Not a good idea. Just all these little parts. These are original magnetic drain plugs. You can see how much crud is built up on there. Give you an idea. Some of the wear. The object at this point is to bring everything back into tolerance. I suspect that this hadn't had the gear lube changed very often. You can see that it's relatively black in there. Not too bad. The thrust surfaces are pretty good in here, but again, it's a good thing to catch this at this point with that cluster pin being wore out. If we were to mic this cluster pin hole, we'd find this to be hold its dimension sideways and be elongated that way. And what has really happened here is this the gears being helical cut creates a thrust. The cluster would fit in the case like so, and it creates a thrust pushing this down and back. I'm exaggerating the movement, but obviously if this pin being in here, it puts a pressure here and elongates this aluminum hole through the ears. And if we don't address this issue, or if we just use some sealer or something to just take care of the symptom and not the problem, what we have here is a cluster being more of an angle and putting quite a bit of wear on our gear set. You know, if you think in terms of levers, what happens when you've got a couple thousandths on this end, it's exaggerated on the other end and prematurely wearing the gears out.
Okay, and when will everything be back from the subcontractor so you can do the final assembly?
Well, it usually takes about a week and a half with the shipping, and then we'll address it when it comes in. We should be ready, and it doesn't take us long, with less than a week to do the assembly. Usually 2 or 3 days. It'll be relative to how much work we have going on at the time. Corvette. Well, it's a nice case from a '74 Corvette. Belongs to Rick in California. So we had it bushed front, so the pin is nice and tight. Send the pin along so the bushing is matched. The bushing is aluminum to expand and contract the same as the aluminum from the case. Minimize any potential of having a leak out the front. A very nice case. Thrust surfaces are in great shape. The rest of it looks in great shape. No hairline cracks. It's the later 661 case with a drain plug.
What
Beautiful
happens
piece.
next?
Well, it'll get media blasted and painted. Cleaned and painted. And then the assembly.